Hi guys, this is Elisa with Fusion DIY. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I take items that I find in a thrift store, a yard sale, or a flea market, and I upcycle them. I give them new life and I put them in my booth, which is located at the Pickers Junction, 141 East Broad Street in Quakertown, Pennsylvania, and I resell them and they find a new life in someone else's home. I take old items and new technologies and new products, and that's what you call a Fusion DIY. In today's video, I have 3 projects for you, and I'm not going to talk too much about them. Let's just get right into the video and enjoy it. This canister was destined to be given away, but as I was driving to the thrift store to donate it, I thought, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it and I'm going to make it over. And so I gave it a coat of Waverly chalk paint. And once the first coat dried, then I went back and I gave it a second coat. And then it sat in my workshop for about 2 weeks until I had an inspiration for it. And you'll see coming up in just a moment that I did. I actually did have an idea for it. This was a stencil that I picked up probably 2 years ago, and I never used it. I never had an opportunity to use it. I never had the right project for it. And as it turns out, this was the perfect project for it. So I'm taking some black paint and I'm just going with a sponge and filling in the letters. I did not use all of the stencil. I only used the center portion. If you're familiar with this stencil, it has a circle around it, but the entire stencil was too big for the canister, so I just used the center part of it. When I took the stencil off, I just loved how it turned out, but I wanted to age it a little bit, and so I went ahead and I took some watered down Waverly chalk paint, Waverly antiquing wax, that's what it was, and I put the antiquing wax all over it. Unfortunately, I did not get video of that, so I'm just showing you here when I was giving it the final wipe down, and you can see that there's some unevenness in the antiquing wax, and that was perfectly fine with me. I didn't matter that it was uneven, because aged cans like that typically do have unevenness to them. So the wax did go on a little bit unevenly, but that's okay by me, because typically when you see old cans like this, they are not perfect and they're uneven in their look. And here it is in my kitchen with my antique utensils in it, and it is ready for a new home. I love how it turned out. It was well worth the weight to make it over. For project 2, this is a wine box that I picked up at a yard sale, and I actually picked up 2 of them, 2 identical ones at the same time, and so this is the first one that I'm making over. The first thing I'll do is I'm going to just take some awesome cleaner and I'm just going to clean the dust off of it, and then I will get started with painting it. And I'm giving it a coat of the Waverly chalk paint, again the white Waverly chalk paint, and I really do like this paint. If you haven't tried it, you can get it at Walmart. It's fairly inexpensive, and for projects like this it really does an excellent job. So I'm going to give this box, the whole box is going to get 1 coat of paint, because I plan on putting some decoupage paper on the top, and I want that decoupage paper to pop. Now you can see that I've painted the bottom portion of the box in a very pale pink, and this paint actually was paint that came from the Home Depot, and it was paint that was an oops paint. So they got a sample, someone got a sample, they didn't like it and they returned it, and I spent 50 cents for this paint, and so now it's in my stash. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to put some decoupage medium on the box, and I am going to lay down the first bit of the decoupage paper. Now this is actually a napkin, and it is a 2-ply napkin. I did not separate the plies because I did not want the shadow from the label or the type of wine that it was to show through. So I did put both layers on. Now I tell you guys, every time I do a decoupage, always tap. And for whatever reason, I slid my fingers across, and right there in the upper left corner you can see that I made a hole in the paper. But as a DIYer, we know that this is fixable. So I'm going to just move on, keep on going, and finish laying down the decoupage paper, and then I'm going to go back and address my little oops over there. Okay, I zoomed in close because I want you to see it. You can see it in the upper left corner there, right under the word patisserie. There's a little white spot, and we are going to fix that. And what I'm doing is taking a piece of the paper with roughly the same coloring, and I'm tearing it. I'm not going to cut it square, because if you cut it, you will see those lines, those outlines. when you tear it, you can actually feather in the edges so that it will be barely noticeable. And then I'm tapping the spot with some decoupage medium, and I'm putting that piece of paper right in there. And then I'm going to go back and tap over it again, and voila, the piece has been repaired. So now I'm just going to take my heat gun and make sure that I dry that so that it doesn't get caught on anything else. And then I'm going to go around the box in a downward motion with my sandpaper, and I'm going to sand off the excess paper on the edge. Not only does it give you a clean cut of the paper, the excess paper, it also gives it just a really nice look when you do this as a method to remove your excess decoupage paper. Once I got all the decoupage paper off, I realized that there was some of the areas of the top of the box that I needed to go back, and I needed to paint pink. Originally, I thought that I was going to carry the decoupage paper down over the entire lid, but then I changed my mind. I liked how it looked with it being sanded off so much that I just decided to paint the rest of the box pink. And then I'm drying everything. I also gave the top another coat of decoupage medium, and although it looked very wrinkly when I did that, when it dried it was perfectly flat. Now, what to do about the inside? Again, you can see the brand of the wine there on the top of the box, but I decided that I was going to put more decoupage paper on the top of the box. The bottom I'm just going to simply paint with the same pink paint. When that was done, I took a very skinny paintbrush and I went around the edges of the box just to make it all match and make the edges look like it was not a balsam wood box. Once that was done, I got my decoupage medium out again and I pre-cut another piece of the napkin to fit on the inside. Again, I kept the layers together. I didn't separate them, and I simply laid down this piece of decoupage paper, or a napkin basically. This time I was a little bit more careful about how I laid this down so that I didn't run into the same issue before with the paper tearing. And as I was creating this, I have to tell you guys that I was loving how it turned out, or how it was turning out, and I was just very, very excited with this project. Once I got the decoupage medium down and I got the napkin down, I went over it with another coat of decoupage medium, and same thing, it got very wrinkly, but when it dried it was perfectly fine. And then I tried to do a little bit blending with some paint to try to match the napkin a little bit more. You can see there's little hints of yellow in there, and I did that, and I also then went over it with additional pink just to blend it a little bit more. And then I removed the tape from the latch, and that proved to be quite the challenge. Once that was done, there was a little bit of paint left on the latch, so I simply took a baby wipe and I wiped off the excess paint. Now once this box was done and the inside cover was dry, the paint was dry, I gave it 2 coats of Rust-Oleum's polyurethane and it was basically done. And I thought, I need something to put inside this pretty box, and I decided to make a matching journal. So this is a journal that I picked up off of Amazon, and it has blank pages and it's got that wonderful blank cover, just itching for something to go on that cover. So I am definitely going to take advantage. It also does have that placeholder so that you know where you left off as you write your journal. So I first took again some white paint and I painted the covers, the front and the back covers of the book, and I also painted the spine. And you guys have heard me say this before, that when you are going to decoupage, it's always good to have something white underneath, have a white background, because then it makes your colors in your decoupage paper really pop. So here you can see I'm painting the spine, and then I took my heat gun and I dried the front cover and I dried the spine, and then I flipped it over and I painted the back cover as well. I didn't video that because, I mean, painting is painting, right? You've seen it once, you've seen it a million times. Now I'm going to dry fit the piece of decoupage paper over the book to see how I need to cut the paper and where I want the images to land on the covers. Once that was determined, then I took my decoupage medium and I started to lay out the paper. Now this took a couple of tries because I wanted to make sure that I got it straight and I got it centered. So it took a little bit of fiddling around with it, and when I finally got it where I wanted, I went ahead and I pressed it down. Now with a book cover, you have to remember that the spine, there's usually a dip right there where the spine meets the cover. And so I just wanted to be extra vigilant about making sure that I had pressed the napkin into that little depression there where the cover meets the spine. Can I just tell you how much I love this napkin? I just think it is so pretty and it's so romantic, and I know that some young lady is absolutely going to love this as a journal, and perhaps even the box in which she can store her journal. But now I'm putting the paper on the spine as well, and I'm going to pull that over and just give it a little bit of a tug. With a single ply napkin, I wouldn't do that because the napkin would tear too easily, but because I had the 2 plies, I gave it a chance and I figured it would be okay. Even if it tore a little bit, I could still go back and fix it, but it didn't. So fortunately, that was a good thing. And then I took my heat gun just to dry it. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to piece the back because the napkin is not wide enough to fit all the way around. So that took a little bit of figuring out, but when I did figure out where I wanted to piece it, it was very easy to make the line disappear. So once I figured out where I wanted to piece the napkin, I cut it a little bit bigger just so that I had a little bit of extra room to maneuver it, and just in case I needed to make some adjustments along the way. Now again, just as a reminder, you don't want to keep that straight line, that line cut right there. You want to peel away the very edge, and when you put your piece down to piece it, it makes the line disappear and you don't see where the pieces were glued together. So now I'm decoupaging down the piece of the cover, and then I'm going to take the add-on piece and I'm going to lay that down over this piece that I am decoupaging onto the back cover. And then just make sure that when you do this, you have a good amount of decoupage medium on your brush, just to make sure that those edges and everything is down very securely. Then once again, I'm going to take my heat gun and make sure that everything dries properly. And then I'll take my sandpaper and I will sand off all of the edges and get rid of all of that residual napkin. Now again, as I said, it's really hard to see where that was joined together, right? And I just love how this turned out. And here it is in my booth. The box and the book. So what did you think of those makeovers? I happen to think all three of them turned out awesome. Sometimes there's one or two items that I do in a week that I think are pretty awesome, but I think all three of these turned out to be excellent projects. And I hope that you enjoyed watching these tutorials. If you did, can I ask you to please hit the subscribe button? Also, give the video a thumbs up and hit the notification bell so that every time I release another video, you'll be notified. Again, I want to thank you for joining me today. Have an awesome week, and I'll see you soon. Bye.